Welcome to a new episode of Manage to Retain, where I talk about issues around business for employees, your customers, recruiting, retention, productivity, and profitability. And I do it with my friends, Sherri and Lou. Listen in, you might get a few tips here on how to do leadership better in your business. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Manage to Retain with my friends Sherri and Lou. Sherri and Lou, how are you all doing today?
Doing great, Vinay. How about yourself?
I'm good, but I'm a little conflicted. I'm going to start with that. All right? And I'm going to tell you why I'm conflicted, because I went to school and I learned about all this math and numbers and stuff like that, and how you're supposed to, all the math everything's about math. You got to be able to have the proof and demonstrate it. And I could kind of tell you, I've run a few companies, and I worked for a number of people. And look, it's all about the bottom line, the profitability. I mean, we're not in business for charity, as they say. It's about the bottom line. And that emotions stuff is all cockamamie, pound sign, exclamation point, all the stuff Charlie Brown and his teachers would say up in the little speech bubbles, right? Have you all ever heard that before?
Well, not only have I heard it, I've said it. There was a time in my career as a leader where I've believed that, and I understand it. I understand reasons why that view is there, but I also understand the result of feeling and believing that way.
Well, I think the common phrase is keep your feelings at the door, or keep your personal life personal. And keep it at the door while you're working in your work environment, whatever it may be. But the reality is we're human. We're emotional beings, and we can't just separate that. Some people do. They're just very tight-lipped, and they won't talk anything about personal life or bring their emotions to the table. But I would say on average, from what we have seen, we are emotional beings, and we have to acknowledge that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what I want to do today, and I'll be the first to admit, I'm just making sure on my bookshelf here that there's no recording devices so my wife doesn't hear this, but there have been times that I have not necessarily agreed 100% with my wife, and I've come to work with a little bit of what that conversation that happened in the morning or the night before. It has colored my day before. That has been known to happen before. Just making sure that there's no recording devices here. She's not looking in on me.
Your secret's good with us.
That's right. Please, I'm recording this, put it on LinkedIn. Just make sure my wife.
But just stay,
And a whole 50 people watching. There you go.
That's right. But what I want to do today is I want to dispel that myth that emotions are a bunch of cockamamie, pound sign, exclamation point, hash mark. They actually matter. And I think you all see evidences. I think a lot of people have this felt sense of this, but I want to actually go through some numbers today to walk through a scenario with using some data, how we can actually show that emotions matter. And just before we started the recording, I mean, there's some big numbers there, and I hopefully this kind of opens your eyes up wide. Before we start into that, Sherri and Lou, tell me a little bit more about when you see organizations that you talk to and they want to kind of up-level their leadership. They talk about the leadership, but not sometimes focusing on the individuals or the people that are working for them.
Mm-hmm.
In order to be able to get the people more engaged in the role and being more productive and more profitable, that's where those emotions come in. Am I making that tie there between what leadership's got to do as well as how they've got to include their people as well?
Well, sure. Your leadership ability is limited to the people that you're leading. That's how it's limited. I mean, you're only limited based upon their success. That's just as simple as that. However your team operates and how successful they are and how they're developed is going to be a direct reflection of how successful you are as a leader. You can develop yourself all you want as a leader, but if you're not connecting those dots, if you're not drawing that consistent line in that direction, there's really you're not leading anybody at this point.
So let's look at some numbers and find out about this organization, and see if we can kind of make some make some light of how this makes a big difference. So call this an opportunity calculator. And let me walk you through this. And I've blacked out some areas so you can kind of see where we go. So what we've done with the data is we've taken in information about 87 employees. We've analyzed their performance over the course of 90 days, and we've scored them on just like you would do on a report in or a test in school from 0 to 100, 100 being the best. That's the A plus. And we said anybody who's got an 80 or better on the test. Where I went to school, an 80 was a B. So anything B or better was someone who was doing really well in that class or on that subject. And we assigned a dollar value to it of $800, just so we could do easy math, right? So if you got an 80 or higher on the test, you made $800 a day. And that could vary by company. So essentially the idea is that for that score that you got at 80, for every point you got in that score, it's worth $10. Is that making sense so far, Sherri and Lou?
Yeah, sure is.
So we had 87 employees that we actually surveyed in this example. 17 of them have that 80 or higher. So they got the B or better. 70 of them are less than highly effective, as in they got less than a B. I want to stop there for a second. Does this present like a real life scenario in terms of the way you see the world?
Yeah, matter of fact, the numbers that we're seeing here that's about right. I mean, this is about average. I mean, this is about the consistent average that we see, where generally top 10%, 15%, maybe if you hit that of the company are highly effective employees. Usually the top 10 about. That is the variance, and then the remaining you've got then. Well, we kind of break it down into very simple terms too, as A, B, and C employees, right? You've got that's kind of how, and you need them all at some level. However, but you want them all at a certain level. That's the point, in order to be effective. So this makes perfect sense.
So let's take this a little further, what we did with the calculations here. So if we said that the 80 is the highly effective score, right? The people who are the high performers, the average score in this company was a 51. Unfortunately for my parents, that was kind of me in most of my school years. I was crossing my fingers under my desk and my toes and everything else, hoping for a really big curve. For all of those average employees in the company, the curve they're looking for is 29 points. I never usually got a curve that big when I was in school.
Right. Yeah.
But we go back to that, for each point on that score, it's $10. So for each one of these employees, the average employee's got to lift by 29 points to get to that 80, right? So this is talking about your existing employees for this organization. Out of 87, 70 of them have got to lift up 29 points each. That's $290 a day for each one of those 70 employees. I think you're starting to see there's starting to be some reasonably large size numbers.
$290 a day potential profit.
Well, top line with there's a fair bit of profit that should come along with that, right?
That's right. It's his top line. Yeah, exactly.
So
and if you look at this,
leaving money on the table.
Yeah.
Right? And anybody that is looking at this that is money focused, which a lot of the top leaders are, when it's harnessed the right way, that's all well and good in a healthy way. We do need to look at things, for the profit of the company. But here's a blind spot. Here is what you're not doing, and here is the data to back that up.
Yeah, let's dig into that for a second, right? So every day that you're showing up at work, you're leaving something on the table. I mean, and I got to tell you, in all the companies I've ever led, I've always wanted to know what that was. Because I had a felt sense that there was more. I could push people harder. They could be more effective. They could be more efficient. But I had no way to figure out exactly how much more I could get. The fact is that we've got 17 of these 80 employees who are already achieving at that level. So it's possible, right? Now, if we use those as sort of the gold standard, those 17 people, these other 70 people, how do I get them to move up to that gold standard is really the question that we're looking at here, right? And we're not asking them to get to 100. We're just asking them to get to 80. Right?
80. Yeah. Heck, even if you increase it by 10, 15% until you got there, right?
So,
it's a drastic difference.
So if you take a look at this $800 a day for each one of these people in this role, and there's 87 of them at that's this number right here, right? So you got 87 times 800. So they're creating about $69,600 per day across these 87 employees, right? But that's all employees with a score of 1 all the way up to 100, all those 87 employees.
Right.
If you took those that were at those 70 that were at this average of 51, okay, and you bumped them up 29 points, I think we got to do a drum roll or something here. Right? I want to show you what that number is.
Big time.
This is how much money is being left on the table every single day. If you lift all those 70 employees that had an average score of 51 by 29 points on a daily basis, you got $20,000 more on top of the $69,000, right? So this company was running it at an annualized rate of about 15 million a year, 15.3 million. They're leaving almost $4.5 million on the table, and that happens every single day.
Yeah.
I mean, does that move the needle?
Yeah.
This here shows very clearly the gap that unfortunately a lot of us leaders will put in place and not even see it. And it's all about what our approaches are. How are we moving the needle? What is it we're doing? See, we talked about this previously before we came on too, right? Vinaya is like, us as leaders, we don't have to be told and we don't have to be explained the why of what we do. We know that we're in a position, we have a boss who's also, or we're the owner of the business or CEO, and we have a bottom line. We know why we have to go a certain direction to hit that, but how are we going to get there? And this is a perfect example of the how not really being totally refined.
So if we look at that, right, we're talking about a company that's, I mean, these two together is 19.7 million, about a $20 million company that's only realizing 15.3 million.
You think about that, right? I mean, that's you literally that over a 4-year period, that over a 4.5-year period, 5-year period, that's $1 million, $1 billion. That brings us up a whole other level, right? Another $1 million over the next several years.
What's happening is on a daily basis, which we were talking about some annualized numbers there, right? But on a daily basis, we're leaving 29.2% production off the table.
Crazy.
And here's the thing: is this is all based on what is possible today, because these 17 employees here that are at the 80th scoring an 80, it's possible, it's doable, right? It's just we're talking about lifting these people right here.
Yeah,
they're already there. Now,
I mean,
So they're just doing that 10%, right?
Even more, yeah. I mean, it's just a little bit of work, a little bit of effort to get them there. And this is, and this is the point. Let's look at this. Let's look at the bottom line here just one more time, because you've got a gold mine here, and I think that the listeners really have to see this. This company in particular that we're looking at right here, $15 million right now per year. How long would it take them to become a $1 billion company? At that level, we're talking 10 years.
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, how many years are we talking here?
Yeah.
But if we look at this increase now to 4.5 million on top of that, now we're talking 20 million, close to $20 million. Now we're looking at a lot shorter period of time, become $1 billion company.
Yeah.
A lot shorter. All right. So that's what we've got to look at here. Is that if we're complaining about not making enough money, complaining about having to not have the funds to be able to hire more people on the staff, or how to developing people. I mean, let's be straight and honest, okay? How many companies do we know? And maybe you as a listener, you might hear this too. Your company just, we really can't afford to have consistent development of our teams and our people. Well, the reason you can't is because you have a gap. What if you had $4.5 million a year extra? Would you be able to develop your people then?
Here's the beautiful part. The fact is that this is probably almost all margin at this point, because guess what? You already have the people and you have all the costs.
Exactly.
This is almost a $4.5 million of unencumbered revenue.
That's it.
Because all the expenses are already sunk.
That's right. You already pay. Yeah, your overhead's already coming out at this point. There's no change.
You're not getting more employees. You've already hired them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
So here's what I want to drill in, right? So and this is part of anybody who's listening in here. I mean, these are fantastic numbers. I mean, gosh, if you could figure out, yeah, like Sherri and Lou said, if you could even take a 10% step towards that 4.5 million, that's still a massive step forward, right? The reason Sherri, Lou, and I are on this call together is I take the data and analytics. This is actually based, and I'll be more than happy to walk you through how we derive this. If you're interested in seeing how this is dumped directly out of their software. I didn't edit anything. We just visualized it and did some calculations on it to build all of this. So we actually haven't done any manipulations. This is based on what they already have as existing staff and existing production capabilities. And that's what we found. We will show you what numbers are possible and where those numbers come from. Sherri and Lou, but just after I show you the numbers, the next question is, well, how do I get my people to understand this and do this? And how do I train them? And how do I talk to them? Do you want to talk through what you all do for companies? Because I think that's the piece that a lot of people misunderstand. All right, now I see this. What do I do next? That's what they
Right.
And why wouldn't anybody want that?
Right.
And if anyone in a leadership role, we're all responsible for the bottom line. And don't put it this way: if you're not the CEO of the company, do not show him this information. If you have a gap, fix it first. Okay, just giving you a heads up, because you see, and there's so many things that we have seen and we operate in and what we provide to help fill this gap. And all it's going to take is some very small changes in awareness, and understanding, finding out who those rock star players are, capitalize on those rock star players, develop those that may have potential to become leaders beyond where they are, so they can then drive those other ones. There's so many avenues that we can do, but we will need to we sit down, identify your goals. It's not always about the money. The bottom line is usually dollar signs, but there's a reason. What is it about those dollar signs that you're going to get? What is that going to accomplish? Well, that's what we need to understand. But then now we can then drive you and come up with ways to develop you and your team to get there. Because you're not going to do it on your own. There's no way one person's going to sit there. You're not, as a leader, going to say, okay, how am I going to personally drive $4.5 million?
We like to think that, but no.
It would be nice. Unless you most of us might be doing that now. I did it. We've all done it. But that's not the effective way, right? We talk. That's, if you notice in your data, Vinay, effective way.
Yeah. I mean,
right?
they'll be the face of it, but we'll give you the support and guidance to achieve it. Right.
Exactly.
Well, hopefully, gosh, if you're, I mean, as we do more and more of these, I'd like to kind of go through these, because generally back of the napkin from all the companies we worked with, that potential lift that we look at for companies is anywhere from 15 all the way up to 30. I've seen as high as 35% that's being left on the table, right? Wow. Massive numbers with the existing population of employees that they have today, existing software, existing vehicles or trucks or equipment or software, all the stuff that they already have in place today, because you're already bearing all of your costs right here. This right here is all butter. It's all butter.
If we could, and that's 100% accurate, Benign, let's put this into perspective. If we could say to you, let's sit down, let's get the numbers, and let's come up with a plan so that you as a company can reach this goal of an additional $4.5 million per year. And because you're going to make that, would you pay me $40K out of that to develop your staff? Would you pay $80K? Right. Who would not do that? Who would not take and invest a fraction of this profit into developing a company that can then leverage that and be consistent and do this year over year over year? And then eventually this company becoming a $1 billion company in 20% less time.
Yeah. Wow. Well, hopefully anybody who's listening has some, or at least we've opened your eyes to what potential is already sitting underneath your nose today. If you have any questions on how to do that, how to leverage this information, how to start to act on it, reach out to Sherri, Lou, or myself. let us help you find that roadmap to success here, because I'll tell you, this is probably how everyone else in your industry is operating. You now have the capability of doing this.
That's right.
Sherri and Lou, thanks for your time today. Thanks for sharing.
You got it. Thanks
You're
for that.
welcome.